Welcome, Catherine, to another Wisdom Within Conversations, one of my most favourite things to do. So there you are over in Canada. I'm in the UK. And we talked about what the subject would be this week. And we decided that why do we get angry? Which I think is a perfect subject. One, because we had a conversation about that ourselves this week. And also, I know that people get angry because they take things personally, but also it's such a rich subject, isn't it? Because there are so many people, men and women and children in the world, who don't understand that actually feeling that emotion is okay, and also expressing that emotion is okay sometimes. And it's knowing, though, isn't it, when to do anger the right way or to do it the wrong way. So what do you think about that?
I love the topic, Marion. It's something that I've thought about over the years and looked into for my own sake. So I think, as you said, that it's a very rich topic, particularly not only for women, for everyone, for human beings in general.
Yeah.
As women, I think we're often conditioned to do something with our anger other than express it directly, and that can lead to difficulties. But I love what you said. What do we do with anger? Is there a right way to do it or a wrong way to do it? Those are all things that I've thought about. So I think it's a really pertinent topic for us. I'm happy we're talking about it. I'll just say a little bit, over the years, I grew up with a dad who was an angry guy. I loved him dearly, and but he was a rager. We didn't have any substance abuse in my family of origin, but we had a dad who would get angry and explode and be in a rage. And so he was doing the best he could. That's what would happen. So for years, I did something else no one else was allowed to express anger directly. So 5 kids and a mother, we all did something else with our anger. I got quiet, and as an adult, I got depressed. So my anger was turned inward because as a youngster, I didn't feel safe to express it outwardly. By the time I was a teenager, I was just sulky and sarcastic. And if I got angry at you, you wouldn't hear about it, Marion. You wouldn't necessarily even know it. You just wouldn't hear from me again. So you can imagine, I lost a lot of relationships in my lifetime because I had no idea what to do with the feeling of anger. And in fact, I suppressed it so quickly. I became so good at repressing it that I thought I rarely felt anger. But what I did feel was depression and a lack of a sense of agency in the world. So rediscovering, for me, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not an expert on anger. We're just here talking as two, human beings who've had our own experiences and have looked into it. What I consider now as being in a much more healthy place is that I now have access to the full spectrum of emotional experience, as you alluded to. So whereas before I was seen as someone who never got angry, my current partner lived with me for a couple of years. We were together for 5 years. He saw me get angry once. And I'm not proud of that I didn't have access to anger. I did other things. I didn't get outwardly angry. I did other things, was passive aggressive. And so on this journey to emotional wholeness and wellness that I was on, rediscovering my own capacity for the emotion that we call anger. And remember, if we scale it back, emotional experience is energy in motion. So the energy of anger is powerful.
Yeah.
And many of us have only experienced that energy in a negative way. Okay, because my dad didn't express anger until he was in a rage, because he'd never learned to express it upstream. Like, so there never seemed to be anything constructive about that powerful energy. It only seemed to be destructive.
Yeah.
So I had to really relearn what the energy of anger was and how it could be a positive force in my life, because I had cut myself off from it, and that left me as a depressed human being who didn't want to go out into the world, because I didn't have any sense of agency or any sense of I can take care of myself in the world, because that big powerful energy of what we call anger was just, repressed inside of me. So you alluded to, I've come to see what we call anger as this powerful energy and force for change, which isn't negative. So it can be expressed very negatively, and
Yeah.
that's what most of us see.
Yeah.
So the journey back to it, for me, to having access to that energy, was a part of my own spiritual journey and my own journey in the realm of self-development, which for me is just a return to wholeness.
I think that's so true, because I think that if we ask lots and lots of people, that they have their own story, don't they? So mine was being in a family where if I expressed anything, it wasn't sort of heard anyway. So I never got angry, really. It was something that was kept inside of me, and I did the opposite to you. If anything happened and I got angry, the first thought I had was that it was my fault. So it's got to be my fault, that this is going on. And that went on for a very long time. But you're right. It's we don't tend to look and wonder, number one, what is anger? But two, that we don't realize we're not expressing it in our lives. So as the years went on, I'm far easier for me to back off into a hole than it is to come out really angry, unless when I was younger, that I completely lost it, because I think I used that control thing instead of just getting angry. So now I have a pretty healthy thing about anger, and I am able to express it, but I'm able to choose how I want to express it, which is what you said about being upstream. Upstream meaning, before we completely lose it, can we go a bit upstream and deal with it back here? I love the subject of anger, because it has been one of the things that was completely lacking in my life. And what it stopped me having was boundaries. Because by being angry, I was able, not out crazy anger. I mean, that very, when you know that something needs to stop and you're able to say that, and you're able to express that. And it allowed me, when I found my anger a bit more, was to put that boundary. And
I love it. Yes, Marion. And what you're describing is one of the reasons that we need access to that energy of what we're calling anger. And let's remember that we have these emotional experiences and we label them. And in our culture, we label some good and some bad. And we can take that off of the table. As human beings, we have this full spectrum of emotional experience, and we have it for a reason, and it's here to serve us as we engage in life throughout our lives. So I love that. And I agree with it. And it's been my experience as well, that without access to the energy that I label as anger, I couldn't create boundaries. And that, for me, I was saying I had no sense of agency in the world, which meant I felt like a victim of the world.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have thought of me as a victim. You wouldn't have thought of me as a victim. People thought of me as very independent and very self-contained. But I was depressed and didn't have a sense of, I can go out into the world and create and engage with the world with a sense of authority, my own authority and power. Again, we need access to that energy that's behind anger. If we don't ever see it expressed healthily, like in a healthy manner, we see it as something destructive and something negative, and try to do something with it. I used to, I used to be proud that I never got angry. Like I thought this was, was a virtue.
I agree. I was the same, by the way.
I didn't want to be seen as an angry woman. I mean, that was the worst thing. But I was willing to be a very depressed woman, with no sense of, no sense of an ability to create in the world. So, when I came across the three principles understanding, I began to understand the relationship between thought and feeling. And so for me, that was critical as well. So my feeling state reflects my thinking. So thought and feeling for me are one thing. Now this is interesting because I have to interpret, I've come to see anger as, again, it's feedback. I'm getting feedback about my thinking, and I'm getting feedback about my experience of life. Now, the more clarity I have around how my experience gets created, the more positive and constructive my response to the feeling of anger. I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes complete sense. What I'm hearing you say is, and I believe the same, is that, so we're 100% feeling our thinking all of the time. What does that mean? That means, to me, when I talk to people about their feelings, is they are a biofeedback system all the time. And they are letting me know the state of my thinking. And if I'm having sunny thoughts, I'm feeling sunny. If I'm having gray thoughts, I'm feeling gray. If I'm having dark thoughts, I'm feeling dark. And people may know that intellectually, but when you really understand deeply what that means, that when I get angry, there's a part of me that's human that's getting angry. But there's another part of me that really sees that I'm not seeing things right. That it's going, well, number one, it's going to pass, because feelings always do pass if I allow it to. But I'm also not seeing things right. And it's reminding me of that. And it's reminding me of many things, really, to let go, or my wisdom will talk to me in the moment, or whatever it is. So yeah, I completely get what you're saying.
Here's the other part of that for me too. I love what you're saying, is that so our feeling state is always reflecting the quality of thought that we have going on.
Yeah.
It's not right or wrong, good or bad. So a part of healthy anger for me, this is just me, like, so it resonates or it doesn't. We all have to go on this journey of discovery, as an individual. One of the ways I see it now is healthy emotions arise and fall away very quickly. So they arise, they fall away. We are always in this state of flow. And just like children, children can be in the sandbox and get angry with their playmate, right? And then they resolve it, and 30 seconds later, they're playing again.
Yeah.
They're not holding on. They're not holding grudges. There's this flow of emotion. It's just, there's this cleanness to it. So when I think about the energy of anger now, in a healthy state, it arises in the moment, and I know what it's telling me. Okay? So it might be a boundary needs to be created here. So where before, when anger used to be very mysterious to me, I might be angry about something that happened last month and it's coming out as sarcasm
Yeah.
or distance, boldness, right? Okay. And it's back there in the past. Now anger can arise and it's clear, it's sharp, it's in the moment, and it comes with a clarity that I need to take some action. Maybe it's move away from somebody, maybe remove someone from my life. You know, in some way, I'm being asked to take care of myself.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it isn't about the past. It might take me a little while to do something. You know what I mean? But it's in the moment, something's happening, this is arising, it's giving me information, and I need to take some action. And then it's gone. So I take the action and it's gone. It's done.
Catherine, what you're saying, Catherine, is that you take the personal is not in it, because it's the energy that arises for you in that moment.
Yes. Yeah, it's neutral in a way. If you know, it's neutral. It's just feedback. And the clearer I am, again, the more clarity I have, the more I see that there's some action that's required of me. When I take that action, again, it's complete. Like that feedback loop has been completed. I'm not holding resentment. I'm not holding, it's clean, and I'm back in the moment, living in the moment. So with any emotion that arises, this, for me, it's, I use the phrase, when it's healthy, it's clean. It arises, it falls away. I'm back living in the present moment, taking care of myself in a way that my own inner wisdom is instructing me. And the way I know that is I'm not filled with resentment. I'm not filled with, so I'm not hanging on to anything. It comes and it goes, and it's instructive to me. Now, you know, I had to hear this first. I had no experience of it. I had to hear this, and then I had to live into it. So for me, it took a long time. Like I would get, you know, I would get angry, but I wouldn't realize it for 2 weeks, let's say. It'd be like, holy shit, like I'm really angry about that. And, you know, it had to catch up with me because I pushed it down so quickly. It was so quick.
Yeah, that is quick.
Boom. I had practiced for a lot of years doing that. And so again, the wonderful thing for me is that as you go on this journey of understanding that a healthy human being has access to the full spectrum of their emotional experience, the journey back to that wholeness is going to look unique for each one of us. But at the end of it, we're going to be able to feel all of our emotional experience and express it in a way that's productive rather than destructive.
Yeah.
And have you had, I know you've had that experience, Marion, too, where there's a whole reframing of what we thought of as negative emotions.
Yeah.
And that energy, when it comes back in a healthy way, is what allows us to move with a sense of authority through the experience of our own life. When I repressed my anger, it only got expressed when I used to explode and wonder, where did that come from? You're like, there's a clue, right? That that doesn't just happen. You have all of these little things that you don't pay attention to and don't respond to, and so you try to stuff them down to appear as like a nice person.
Yeah.
I'd have no use for being nice anymore. Kindness, yes. Niceness is trying to conform to what you think someone else wants you to be. Not healthy for any of us. I mean, that's my distinction, right?
Yeah, and the good girl goes under that one as well, which is
no. Get rid of that.
Yeah. And
um,
being able to really see, though, I mean, what I really saw for myself was that I could get angry and it was okay, and I could sit with that. But you said something earlier about that it gives you the opportunity, this is my words, it gives you the opportunity to be able to decide what to do right now. It's a
yes.
call for action, as is anxiety, and any emotion is a part. Well, I don't believe peace and contentment is a call to action. You just are. But those sorts of emotions like sadness and all of those negative ones, as we call them, are calls for action. And when we stop being so caught up in the feeling and the fear of that feeling and what it's making us behave like in a raw way, we are able to make and listen to our higher self or our wisdom or whatever it is to decide, have a choice about how we're going to deal with it in a good way for us.
I love it, Marianne. And the
Sorry,
other
can
thing,
I
yeah,
just can I
yeah,
just say, because this popped into my mind, it's almost, when those emotions come up, it's almost an opportunity for us to grow as people.
oh, for sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, like absolutely. Um, I I get angry rarely, and I don't feel like a special person because of that. But I deal with things much sooner,
Yeah, so do I.
right? So my goal is to be in the world as authentically as possible,
Mm.
and to trust that. And what that's meant, because I've worked with anger, for many, many years, what that means is that I usually deal with situations before it looks like anger is coming out of me, if that makes
Yes.
any sense.
Yeah.
So,
Because it
and
starts from somewhere.
yes, it starts much sooner. Like if I feel off about a certain situation and I don't pay attention to that early on, let's say I don't listen to my inner wisdom, I don't listen to my intuition, I didn't used to. And so I would find myself in situations where all of a sudden I was really angry because I'd ignored
Yeah.
these nudges, these earlier nudges,
Yeah.
until something was glaring and in my face, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. And so this big outburst of anger would come. What I've learned over the years is that as I deal with things earlier on, there are fewer occasions where I'm actually angry. Um,
That's
and the
because,
other,
Catherine, that's because you're more aware. That's when we use
absolutely,
our awareness, isn't it? You know,
self-awareness.
it's like in my course, the 8 powerful steps to being authentic. One of those steps on that bridge from who you were taught to be to who you're born to be is awareness. It's incredibly important to be aware of those nudges, those feelings, the symptoms, that are coming up, and just yourself. And I wasn't. When I was younger, I would say, actually, um, I think I was born a personal developer because I was able to have that awareness quite young, but I didn't know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
yeah, it comes down to awareness.
It doesn't everything. There's no
Yes.
change without awareness,
Mm.
and so I think anger, again, anger is like any emotion. We label it negative in our culture. We tend to see, and we tend to have these gender biases. It's more acceptable for men to be
Yes.
outwardly angry than it is women. And so learning to see through all of that conditioning
Mm.
to the return to wholeness,
Mm.
anger becomes just this energy that you use to create the life that you want. Um, Again, I want to say too, the thought feeling connection. I've come to see that although there's nothing wrong with being angry in the moment, projecting it outward and thinking someone else is responsible for it is where a lot of the damage comes from.
Yes.
And
I'm
I've,
glad you
yeah,
went on to this. It's important. Yeah.
right. So I don't shame myself for feeling anger. I have a big container for my emotional experience now, which means I don't try and do anything with it anymore. It flows more freely through me now that I'm not afraid of any of those big emotions. I
Mm.
see that they're here to serve me. However, when I was first getting in touch with my anger, after I'd been depressed for a long time, I used to feel it and think, I need to express this like immediately.
Yeah.
So the pendulum swung. It swung from over here where it was repressed very quickly. And there was a really uncomfortable period where, and I think for me, this was the road to healing. The pendulum swung. And for a very brief time, I was like saying to my partner, I'm angry and you need to hear about it. And, I'm not going to repress this anymore. So I was, that again, like I really,
But that's normal for nearly
yeah,
every client I've ever had with self-esteem, who start growing and they gain their confidence. And then they come back the following week and they go, I found my voice and I've been telling everybody. And I always say to them, a lot of people go to that extreme and then I have to coax them back. And
yeah,
coaxing them back to a position where they get wise. They get
yeah.
wiser. They're wise about how to use that.
This is beautiful to understand and to talk about also, because it can, for many of us, that is the path to the return to wholeness and healing. The
Mm.
pendulum swings, a little farther in this direction than we might want, but we're becoming more comfortable with those big energies. And if we continue with compassion and with awareness and maybe a good coach or people who support us in our community, as you said, that's so beautifully, Marion, we will come back to center and to being grounded in a deeper wisdom, that wisdom within. And we will find ourselves less reactive to the world around us and more responsive, whether that's being joyful and happy or being and again, this clarity of mind. I wait for clarity of mind.
Yeah.
When I get angry, I allow myself to feel it. I do my best not to project it outward, but I sit with it in as much as I'm able to. And Marion, I've never failed to be instructed by it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I have clarity of mind, I know what action to take in response to that. So I tend to, now that I have full access to it, I use it instructively for my own journey when I feel angry. I don't, as much as if I project it out onto someone and realize later that it was my own fear or insecurity, I clean that up. I apologize when I calm down. So as human beings, we can always clean things up. We don't have to try and go around being perfect around any of this. It's messy.
No, because, and that's an important fact, because that goes back to, and it's sort of what you said really, is that when we project it out, we will always, for many people, when they get angry, they think it's the outside world's fault. They did this, they did that, they didn't do that right, they shouldn't have done that, whatever it is. And that feeling of anger inside of us can only come from one place, and that's our own thoughts, not of the people or the person outside of us. It can only come from our thinking, which we mentioned before, is that we feel our thinking 100% of the time.
Absolutely.
And that's where clarity needs to settle and come, that this is going on inside of me. This.
Yeah. I love that you say that, because, and the other thing is, you talked about how you used to think it was your fault.
Yeah.
I did too. Like when I was a child and my dad got angry, obviously it was my fault. I did something wrong to make him angry. So again, for me, that was a part of the process of, well, I'm not going to I'm going to try and be a good girl. I'm going to try
Yeah.
and to behave myself so that I don't cause this person that I love to be angry at me.
Yeah.
And my mother had a different way. If my mother got angry, she stopped talking to you. You didn't have a relationship anymore. So
Yeah.
either way, you know, those two extremes as a child, you know, those are the two, you want to prevent that at any cost. And then as an
Absolutely.
adult, so our journey back to wholeness and is for me is to is rediscovering the wholeness within, rediscovering that I didn't cause their emotional experience and no one causes mine.
Yes.
Right? So I'm always living in the feeling of my own thinking. I'm living in the feeling of the quality of thought and thinking that I have going on in the moment. And I have a deeper wisdom that's available to me. And when I learn to access that deeper wisdom, you know, people do, and this isn't negating the fact that human beings do terrible things to one another in their confusion. And so we have reason to feel angry when we look out at the world and we see injustice, or when when someone has been unkind or harmed us in some way. But what we mean by we're always living in the feeling of our thinking, and where the hope lies, is that we have a deeper wisdom than this reactive emotional response to the world. And that deeper wisdom comes with a feeling of peace and a clarity that will help you to respond much more effectively to whatever you're experiencing in your life.
Yeah.
And so when I feel anger, usually it's been said that there's what's underneath anger is fear. And when I get angry, I'm usually afraid. One of my teachers said this: fear comes from one of two things. You're afraid you're going to lose what you have or not get what you want. And I've found that to be true in my own experience. Don't believe it. I'm not asking anyone else to believe it. I've looked at that and I thought, wow, yeah, you know, usually when I'm attacking in anger, I'm afraid of loss of some kind. So again, it's rich. It's a rich topic to explore in your own life. And I think where the hope for me lies for us all is that again, that energy of anger can become a very powerful force for good. It can become the agent for change in our lives. It's not something to be afraid of, but we can harness that energy when we learn to respond to life rather than react. You know, and now when I get angry, I realize that my thinking is stirred up. I don't have a lot of clarity. I don't act. I mean, unless I need to protect myself in the moment.
Of course.
You know?
But that's what's wonderful now, is understanding that I don't have to do anything about that.
Yes.
At that moment in time. Because if either I'm really suddenly angry, and there is something inside of me that's letting me know that, you know, this is going to pass and I'm going to see it differently. So don't do anything now. And you'll know what to do at some point. And I thank God that I have that now.
I love that, you know, and Marian, some people that I love and respect are working in prisons, you know, with men who never knew that they didn't have to act on their anger.
Yes.
So it sounds simple, you know, it sounds too simplistic, but it's very true. There are a lot of people in the world who have anger arise and they think they have to act immedately on that anger. And anger is giving us important information about our own quality or our own state of mind and the quality of our thinking. And if we don't understand that connection, you know, we will either repress it or will express it outward and do violence either to ourselves or to, you know, the people around us in some way. So it's a beautiful thing to know that you have access to that energy, and it can become, again, I just want to say that I know I sound like a broken record, but I didn't know this for most of my life, that this big energy, I could access it in a positive way, that I could use it as a force for change in my life in a very positive way. Now what I call anger is just is anger with clarity for me is just me being in the world and being able to set very clear boundaries with
I
people
love
around.
that. Anger with clarity. I mean, that's such a perfect place to stop. But you know, if we were saying something simple, there is anger with clarity, and there is anger where it's personal. And it's the journey of coming to a place where you see that you can be angry with clarity, and that it arises in the moment and you know what to do with it. It's
Beautiful.
As simply as I can say it, really.
Yeah, and you know, when it's personal, it's anger, and it's me wanting to do something to someone else.
Out.
When it's healthy and it's impersonal, it's a big energy that I can access that isn't destructive. It is productive in my life and in the world around me. So
beautiful description. Lovely as always. I've loved talking about this subject today, and there was something you said earlier and I thought, oh, that's going to be our next subject next week, but I'll have to go back and listen to it. But thank you so much, Catherine.
Thanks for having me, Marian, and as always, my wish is just that as we explore these topics and look at them together, that there might be little nuggets in it for others along the way, as they're on their own journey of exploration. And so thanks for having me again.
As always, lovely. And I will see you next week.
Great.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.